I'm Kim from Yahoo TV. I'm excited to talk to these amazing people about this amazing episode that we just saw. So if I could welcome them to the stage, Jim Gaffigan. The lovely real Jeannie Gaffigan. And the lovely TV Jeannie Gaffigan, Ashley Williams. So who knew that was real? Who remembers this Twitter incident from 2013, I believe?
Yes. Oh, that's a bright young man there.
I did not know that it was real. And I was at first shocked, but then, of course, you can't really be shocked because this is a real thing on a daily basis, and this is what makes this episode so amazing.
Yeah, I think it's, obviously, I mean, Jeannie likes to say we're all one tweet away from career suicide. But when we were crafting this episode, we really wanted it to... It's not so much about the crime, but the punishment, because I was guilty of that tweet. It could be misinterpreted, and it was poorly crafted. But I think it's more of a commentary on the outrage culture, that mob mentality that we had at the end, that I just think is fascinating. We're all guilty of it. We all kind of realize, wait a minute, why are we mad at Anne Hathaway? Why are we mad? Are we that angry at Nickelback? And so there is, and I think that what we saw with Carrot Top and Nickelback is that, they're pretty much innocent, really. So I thought it was a fun inspiration for an episode.
I talked to you last season after this season finale for Yahoo TV, and you said to me, this first season was such an enormous learning curve for us on what we could do and how ambition around a creative idea can be accomplished with television. We realized we can figure out a way to say something important and also be funny and complex. This episode, I think, is the perfect example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Jeannie and I really looked at every episode as an opportunity to build off of what we learned from last season, and so with deconstructing story and really kind of broad, complicated ideas that we set up in the first act, and then by the third act, it's a different idea, which I think is the funnest thing when I watch a show, is that I don't know where it's going, and so we really tried to take some of that and put it into the writing.
Both of you obviously have a commitment to doing something that's creatively fulfilling to you, not just, this show started out at I think Fox or NBC and
CBS.
then CBS.
Oh, I guess NBC.
CBS. And it finally made it to this version, to TV Land, and that really was out of your commitment to doing it the way you wanted to, right? Not just doing a show under someone else's rules and vision of it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say, you want to say something? I don't allow her to talk. I don't allow her to talk.
Women aren't allowed to talk.
Yeah, neither one of us talk.
They're very pretty though.
Gorgeous.
No.
We just sit here and...
But yeah, it is, look, creative people, if you're presented with an opportunity, I'm fortunate enough that I make a decent living doing stand-up, and Jeannie and I have written stand-up and written books, that going through the TV process, it's so complicated and difficult that you have to love every step of it. It can't, we made a promise early on that we weren't going to chase 100 episodes. We weren't going to just churn out sausage. Everything has to be about food with me. But we were going to do something where it's point of view driven, but unique to our point of view. And And that's the harder way to do it, but it seems more fulfilling in the end.
It also feels very much like, because the two of you are doing this and you're doing it together and you're doing every step of it together, from starring in it, producing it, it feels very much like it. I mean, there's such an entrepreneurial spirit around it, and it's the family business. I mean, sometimes literally, like with last season's finale where the kids were in it too, that has to be a very fulfilling part of doing all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance act, right? I mean...
Yeah, I think that, we've all, struggled with, I'm sure everyone in this room who's an artist has struggled with having an idea of your own. And in order to get other people to see it, it has to sort of be dissected and reassembled by someone else, and it doesn't turn out to be your idea anymore. And sometimes that's just the reality of the business. It's like you have to work and you have to keep going at it. And I think that at a certain point, for so many years, we had the balance between what we did in terms of like television work and having an idea that we thought was really funny, and seeing our peers who were really funny comedians get development deals, and then their show is just not their voice at all. And it's sort of this like comedy by committee, and people are deciding, well, that's not that funny and that's not what people want to hear. And then what you get is this kind of watered down product. And then in contrast, we had our stand-up comedy career where we would just build on exactly what we wanted to say. And so kind of seeing those two things develop at the same time, and the comedy that we wanted to do just seemed to have a lot more success than trying to do something and twist it into someone else's idea, or work with people who sometimes didn't understand our point of view and they had their own agenda to, whether it was getting to 100 episodes or making something that was more palatable to, what they perceived to be like a focus group or whatever. And we got a lot more joy out of doing it for love. And I think that once we let go of chasing that dream of, this like incredible syndication model that everyone kind of chases after, and just kind of letting go of that and going with like our hearts and what we wanted to do as artists and what we wanted to say and what we found success doing to our audience, our stand-up audience, we just like put our trust in that kind of, gift of being able to relate to people and hear like immediate feedback, and trusting that that could translate to a TV audience, and then getting an opportunity from TV land to let us have some freedom with telling that story. And that's sort of how we made it here today, and being able to do, crazy things. And also then having to be able to have the incredible honor of being able to like send a script to Nickelback or Carrot Top or people that were saying like, this would be so funny, but how would they respond to it? And have people respond to it like, oh yeah, we want to do this. We think this is ridiculous that we're hated, and we want to make fun of it. And that's really cool that they didn't like run away from this idea of that they were in social outrage jail, or that they were in the trial of the court of public opinion. And that was really fun to get that kind of feedback from the people that we were kind of writing about. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and it was really cool also that TV Land was open to this. Like, as when we sent the outline, they were like, "What? What are you? Isn't this a show about a guy with 5 kids?" And there was a leap that was taken, and I think that it's paying off. That confidence that. It goes back to the stand-up that Jeannie and I write for me. There's nothing sexy about talking about muffins. There's nothing, shocking about bragging about being lazy. But it fulfills maybe like a part of a lot of people, and I think TV Land kind of goes, all right, well, these guys. There's people that like their sensibility. We're gonna trust them on this.
And also, I just wanted to add that because this episode kind of introduces characters that you would be familiar with if you watched the show. Like, you would know who Daniel was, you would know who Jeannie was, you would know who Dave is. You'd understand how their personalities fit into their witness stand testimony and things like that. But because we trust our audience and we trust that we don't have to like educate everyone with like an entire season before we do something like this, and people just get it, they understand the types, they understand the relationships, that we're trusting our audience to be a smart, savvy audience. It's really great that we're not just saying, oh, well, we can't do that because, you know, people won't get it. We are like, people are going to get this because we get it. So it's kind of like community with the audience, I feel like.
Were you surprised at just how many people were excited? I mean, they were having fun. You can tell that the people making fun of themselves are having fun doing it. Were you surprised at how many of them said yes?
Yes. I was really surprised.
Yeah,
But in like, you mentioned the season finale last year, like when we were writing the season finale, Jim wrote in a character named Steve Buscemi. Like he was like, Steve Buscemi, this character's name is Steve Buscemi, and Steve Buscemi is going to play him. And I'm like, what if Steve Buscemi says no and the character's name is Steve Buscemi? And he's like, well, that's just a chance we're going to have to take. So we wrote the whole thing for Steve Buscemi, named Steve Buscemi, and then gave the script to Steve Buscemi. And he was like, I love this, and did it. So it was like a big risk, but it kind of paid off.
Yeah, and that's happening also on Sunday night. We wrote, Jerry Seinfeld, a part for Jerry Seinfeld. And, we asked him last year, and he was, like, too busy. And so we sent it to him with full knowledge that he was likely going to say no, but he said yes. So it's amazing.
That's a great episode, too. I've had a chance to see it. A great way to start off the season, I think. Very father-friendly but funny, and a great episode. You guys will love it. Ashley, I want to ask you, I think everyone probably wonders this. Obviously, they chose you to play Jeannie. Jeannie chose you to play Jeannie. But that must come with quite a bit of pressure, especially in the beginning, to get this right, to get it... I don't know if even right is the right word, but...
No, I think, I think that's accurate. I mean, it is a challenge because... the more I got to know Jeannie, the more she's become sort of like a hero for me. She's a female writer, and when I say she executive produces the show, I mean she's the first one there. She has the cans on her ears all day. She's watching the monitor. She's rewriting jokes, and at the same time, she's on the phone arranging play dates and doctor's appointments and pickups. I'm not kidding. Like, she's doing both jobs, and so it was a tall order. How do I represent this woman? And I'm definitely humble about that. I mean, that is hard. And I think ultimately, one thing that sort of helped me a little bit was I don't have to do all of this because that's impossible to pull off on the show. We only have 22 minutes. So, it's really more, the character of Jeannie actually is slightly more insane, emotionally unstable, a little bit, bonkers. And that, to be honest, was something that I thought was way more something I could do,
But that bonkers character exists. I just hide it unless I'm writing about it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Good answer.
I find you perfect in every way.
But it's really fun to also write for an actress like Ashley, who's so talented and also who's willing to take those risks of, some of my comic heroes are like classic female comedians like Lucille Ball. In the day when it was okay for women to, have these really strong characters that weren't afraid to be a little bit kooky and crazy, and it wasn't like an insult.
Yeah, but originally when the show was at CBS, I played this sort of smiling, doting housewife. And by the way, that's a great gig. Like, these are lovely people, and I was like, I hit the jackpot. But then you cut to like episode 3 of this season when I'm clad in like head to toe in this like black schoolmarm outfit with my hair slicked back and this gigantic Catholic cross, like whipping this like bowl of oatmeal at my children and screaming in like a Scottish accent. And I ran up to Jeannie in the middle of the episode and I was like, more characters. We need more of this. And she was like, got it,
Yeah, we're doing a lot of like flashback and fantasy and things where we are not afraid to kind of go to different places.
She really encourages me to like go there. Like at one point in the middle of one of the episodes, Jim came up to me and he was like, go crazy, go further, yell louder, go bananas, that day when I was yelling at the internet troll. And like, I've never gotten that note before. Like, a girl like me who usually plays these vanilla, adorable roles gets, okay, like, you're not the funny one in the scene. Like, this isn't about you. Like, you make other people look funny. And that's not the show for me, which is a miracle as a woman. So I'm proud, and it's so much fun to be in the game here. Oh, thanks.
Well, and Jeannie, what is it like for you? I mean, that must be this is such a personal show, obviously. You played Jim's wife on My Boys. Was there any consideration of you doing that here?
I think that originally, like several versions ago of the show, it was going to be kind of like a scripted reality series where we sort of played off each other. And I think it was going to be like sort of like a fake reality show that we had written all these episodes about, but it was going to have the sort of handheld feel to it, and we're going to do a lot of the stuff that we actually do. And that was a different version of it. But once we had interest from CBS, it became a whole different thing. Like Ashley said, it's like they have and they do what they do very well. Believe me, I'm not disparaging
Love
CBS.
CBS.
They do a multicam model that has a formula. And once we went into that model, it was like, there's not a model of that reality show. It was a very cable-y idea. Let me put it that way. And they at that point it became this other thing. And there were actually they cast a different person as Jeannie. And it was a whole different set of characters. But it was called the Jim Gaffigan Show, but it was a totally different show. And it was sort of like comedy by committee a little bit. And it just didn't work that well. But by that point, I was already producing. And that's when I was like, I mean, this producing thing is just something that I have to do, and especially to preserve your life story, you have to give the reins away if you're on camera. Like you have to have that third eye watching you. You all know that, you have to have that person who is able to like look at it and protect you. And so I serve that for Jim. I'm the person who probably cares more than anyone else about how, Jim's comedy is coming off. And so at that point, when I took that role, it was very important to me to find someone who was going to represent my character on the show. And we saw a lot of actresses. And there was something about Ashley that really struck me as not like, oh, she's like me, but it was like she has this energy and this kookiness. And she's also like so talented and so adorable that I was like, this is a great combination between the two of them. Like they can play off of each other. I had to see them read together. And so for me, it was, people think, oh, what a sacrifice that you're doing, but it wasn't. It was a gift to me. It would have been a sacrifice with anyone else, I think, to like watch it and be like, oh my God.
Yeah, and I also think like the fact that we're at TV Land and the fact that Ashley is playing Jeannie ends up being this incredible blessing from a creative standpoint. Like if in the end we are seeking creative fulfillment, having Jeannie as our showrunner it's invaluable. Like it wouldn't be the same show. And if our show was at a network like one of the big 3 or 4, there would be too much commerce involved. So like these things that happened ended up being like an incredible blessing because we would like I think a couple of days ago I was talking to my manager and it's like if this show was at CBS, it probably would have been canceled. But also it would not have been this show that I would have loved. I wouldn't love every step of the way. That's not to say I don't complain.
And I do have to say that I am a member of SAG and I am an actress and I appear in many episodes in little cameo roles, which are super fun.
The first night, Sunday night.
And so on Sunday night, you may see a little appearance by me. And that's a little preview.
Fantastic.
And just of note, she doesn't just act and executive produce. She also directed our final episode of this season, which was amazing.
Fantastic.
Yes, I joined the DGA this year, which was really exciting as well.
Excellent.
And she wrote the Magna Carta. Believe it or not, she did. And those
It's
pyramids in Egypt, this lady.
How do you even go about? I mean, we've seen other shows where people play versions of themselves. I don't think quite as personally as you guys do. I mean, the whole storyline. How do you even start creating that character when it is you, when it's sort of you? Where do you start? I mean, do you start by kind of eliminating some things that you don't want from your real life in the character? Where do you begin?
I don't know. I think we begin as like writers. Like we begin as writers and we write situations that are true to us and then we heighten them for comic effect. And then we find really talented people to make it their own. So sometimes like, we've had conversations where Ashley's been like, how should I approach this? Because like Ashley lives in LA. She has one child. We're very different. But there's certain things that we connect on. Like there's, moving to New York with a baby and having to go to the park is very different than going outside with your child in Los Angeles. And she knows that. And then I'm like, okay, multiply that by 5. And she's like, got it. It's like that magic if, right, that we all use as actors. It's like, what if? And she's so talented that I feel like she can be really real as a mother of 5. And I believe that she's a mother of 5 because she's just crazy enough to do something like that.
Well, do you, when it comes, and again, we know that a lot of the situations in the show are inspired, obviously, by real life. Are there times when one of you has written something and the other says, no, we aren't going there? Or maybe even, Ashley, about something that you want to put in an episode? Or does anybody ever say no to anybody else about what to include from real life?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We tell the truth a lot. Like we do. We heighten situations, but we have an entire episode about Jeannie and Jim fighting. Like the entire episode, like one of the episodes that Ashley, I don't want to give a spoiler alerts away, but when she described like going bananas in the episode, it's like when you tell a story to someone else about something your husband did, you might portray him in a slightly different way than actually happened. So, and vice versa. So we have an episode that kind of explores what happens when there's an issue on the table that's not being discussed, but it becomes about this other issue, and the vehicle with which you tell the story becomes kind of an untrue version of reality. And you need someone to say, okay, calm down and retell the story actually how it happened. But the fun is in telling the story of how you remember it.
Yeah, and I think because we are striving to do original stories as opposed to formula stories. So the more personal they are, the less likely we're going to end up halfway through going, there's a Simpsons episode like this. So if it is,
because so many things have been done, like with so many things we've started to write stories before, and literally can I just tell this story because it's so bizarre. So Jim is from, Indiana and from the Chicago area growing up, and has a brother named Mitch. So we wrote this year an episode about how his brother Mitch comes to visit and stuff happens, okay? So, and the character of Mitch is portrayed by Andy Richter. So our script supervisor said, by the way, on 30 Rock, Liz Lemon had a brother named Mitch played by Andy Richter. And we already wrote it and cast it and everything like that. We were like, what? But it was completely different. But it's like, it's just insane that you find out something like this and you're like, but the show must go on, And then we have to show like this is a totally different spin on it. But what a coincidence that someone could have had the same actor, the same name from the Midwest. It was bizarre. So we have to constantly like fight against the fact that like every story's been done before. And watching TV or a movie with Jim is like really annoying because he always knows exactly what's going to happen. Like you start a Law and Order, he's like, here's who did it. I'm like, no, I want to enjoy the ride. So we make sure that our stories that kind of sneak up on you. We try to like take it to a place where you don't really think what's going to happen is going to happen.
You should have it figured out in the first act. I don't think that as the viewer, that's why we love some of those pay cable dramas, is we have no idea, and the nudity, but we have no idea where they're going. And that's where we can escape. And so when Jeannie and I were writing these, we would always challenge ourselves to go in a different direction. Grounded in reality, based on the New York experience. But yeah, I'm a great guy. Did I mention that?
One of the other things that I love so much about the show, and it was so evident in season 1 and what I've seen of season 2 so far too, this whole show feels like a love letter to New York. It just showcases the city so much, and it's obvious that you love it. That the montage of Jim's fast food experiences, even it's such a great scene, and again, that's such a nice way to portray the city. I mean, I think you get a little something extra being a New Yorker watching the show.
Yeah, I think there is something about, and we did a screening, and there was the locations person from Law and Order, who was like, who really picked up on that. Because if you watch Law and Order, you're like, hey, that's 6th Street, hey, that's 23rd Street, and so.
And it's really challenging. Like, we're exhausted. Like, we shot, like, this episode is not, I mean, except for maybe the montage. Like, this was like the jail
Yonkers.
in Queens and Yonkers courtroom. But normally we're in Manhattan. And as everyone here knows, it's a really brutal place to shoot movies and TV, because it's like you have this like hero location, and you show up on the day and there's a big Con Ed truck parked right in front of your beauty shot, and then there's a car alarm going off and you have to wait, and you're running out of daylight. So it was a very exhausting experience, but we're so committed to showing like kind of the depth and the grit and the reality of New York, and not just like the places that they show in the Empire State Building, and all the beauty shots of these iconic locations that you see a lot portrayed in like sort of the LA versions of New York shows. But we're going like Lower East Side, we're going, we're seeing Katz's, and we really make sure that, in our AD department, we work really hard to make sure that, because we employ a lot of background actors, we make sure that we fill all the restaurants with like background actors that are really true, like they're actors. They're not just standing there to fill a space. We're really interested in great actors who are doing things and are real and alive.
And look
in the
like
background.
real New Yorkers, too.
And look like real New Yorkers. And if you watch our season, you'll see that each location has a different look to it. And these people are handpicked and selected from, we go over all the photos from our AD department. We have background meetings. We employ a lot of people. This is a great, great opportunity for employment in New York, this show. We really concentrate on that.
Fantastic. We have to touch on guest stars for a minute. Amazing. Just in that episode, you mentioned Seinfeld is in the season premiere. Last year, you had so many great people. Steve Buscemi. I have to ask the question that I'm sure everybody is wondering: is Mac back? Is Macaulay back this season?
Well, you'll have to watch Sunday night. It's a special, unique. I mean, Macaulay lives in Paris, so there is something about. I don't know. Yeah, I want to. How do I answer
Mac
this?
is back.
Yes.
I'm just going to spoiler alert. Mac is back for more.
And it's great because it's what's so great about how we've used Macaulay in the show is that we've never used it as the same joke. And that's a compliment to him, because in every story he either serves as a foil or serves as a distraction, or serves as an opportunity to abuse me, and it's really fun.
Fantastic. I have to ask you also about your tour coming up very shortly. Is this true that this all happens on a bus with the whole family, traveling cross country? How is this not the show?
Believe me, it's like there's been offers to have a camera crew with us on these tours, and I'm just like, no way. I need to get away from that when we're doing that, because we're doing live stand-up shows all over the country, and it's like a little bit, I like to keep the TV show and the tour separate, because it's like, I'm just exhausted. It's so much work to do both of them, but doing them together, because I'm not going to give... we're not going to give our life over to a separate production who can edit it and make it what they want. We want to make it our own. We made our show, and the thought of producing a TV show about the bus tour is just mind blowing to me. Maybe the Gaffigan Show could go on a bus tour.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe there's an episode next year on a bus.
No, it would be a series of episodes, because it's too much to handle in half hour.
But
yeah.
there are things that happen that are sitcom or comedy worthy, I'm sure.
Oh, and a lot of them come onto the show, like a lot of situations, but definitely there's an opportunity for some traveling on the Gaffigan Show, for sure.
Will we see the kids again this season? We saw them in the season finale. The promos that they shot that are on both of your Twitters, look at them if you haven't seen them. They're not only adorable, beautiful children, but they have fantastic comic timing. They're already there.
We're going to see some of the real Gaffigan kids this season.
Fantastic.
Yes, I don't want to give any spoiler alerts away, but there are appearances by real Gaffigan children in the season, for sure.
Okay, I have to ask you. I read that both of you are, and maybe you too, Ashley, are Walking Dead fans. Okay, that you're like
Can't
on
do
an
violence.
obsessed.
Okay. I shut down emotionally.
I can do violence.
Love it.
Next
Like,
question.
You're obsessed. You're like
I
at the
glorify
obsessed fan.
violence.
Okay. So who's on the receiving end of the bat? Yeah. What's your opinion?
Is it Daryl? I mean, I just don't want it to be.
Well,
Is it
Daryl's
Daryl?
got
Because
his
he's got his
motorcycle
own
show, right?
So like,
That's
my business opinion.
Well, in the comic books, it was Glenn, right? I don't know. I hope it's not Glenn. I really like Glenn. So I don't know.
Are you guys all following
know
this?
what-
Because are you like what?
Well, but we're not spoiling because nobody knows yet. So
Nobody
this
knows
is just
yet.
an opinion.
Nobody knows. You know? Don't tell me. He said, I know.
Oh yeah, they're probably already shooting, aren't they?
And we had a couple of audience Q&As, the cutest of which someone wants to know, a younger fan wants to know, where is the best place to get red velvet cake in New York?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Magnolia? Would it
I
be?
think Magnolia is pretty good, right? Is that what
Yeah,
we?
I think Magnolia.
that's
Magnolia
where-
Bakery.
Is that
Yeah?
where I ate 2 of those?
Yes.
By the way, Katz's has pretty good carrot cake. I just want to go on the record. But we're talking about cake. It's not like, oh darn, this sugar bread's bad, right?
There's no bad cake.
Right?
Yeah.
Not to me.
Well, thank you all very much. Thank you all for.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
I can't wait to see the rest of the season. This episode is, I think, just a taste of what we're going to see, and fantastic.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it.